Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I'd like to discuss a new vaccine mandate for private employers in New York City. Before I get into the topic of this video, it's important to go over a couple of things just so that we can get the disingenuous comments out of the way. I got vaccinated in April of this year. This is a COVID-19 vaccination record card. I announced that I got vaccinated in around, I think, early May of this year in this video, demonstrating that I did not have any serious adverse effects. And I also had a mask mandate in my store from early March 2020, back when they said you were a hypochondriac if you had people wear masks, all the way up until late June of this year. You can hear my thought process behind all of that in this video on wearing a mask during COVID, my opinions as a business owner, and why I instituted it. And when it comes to the vaccine, my thought process behind it was, if there is even the slightest chance that I am less likely to spread COVID to somebody else or have a bad case of it, it was worth it. Even if it wasn't something that I may have gotten otherwise, I am a public figure at this point. So I do meetup groups in person where people can come by and learn from us how to solder and how to do microelectronics work. I do meetup groups like the one that I did in Boston, where dozens and dozens of university students will come by, and I will try to get them politically engaged and speak to their congresspeople and senators on right to repair. If I can get even one more person to show up to one of these meetups because they feel more comfortable being around me because I got the vaccine, it's a win. So as a public figure, I figured anything that I can do to increase public confidence in attending any of the lobbying groups that I do, the meetup groups that I do, the soldering workshops I do to get people engaged with repair, the better. So I got my vaccine, but you do you. I'm not mandating that you get anything. The reason I say this is because rather than engage with anything I bring up in this video, most people are just going to point to the low-hanging fruit of calling me an anti-vaxxer and then immediately just assuming that I'm the worst possible human being rather than engaging with anything that I say. And I just want to cut that off at the pass before it begins because it's just boring and annoying at this point. Now, a few months ago, I did a video that said I am a New York City business owner and I will not follow Mayor de Blasio's order. Mayor de Blasio's order was that if you have a gym, a restaurant, or a bar, or some sort of indoor restaurant, that you needed to check the vaccination record card of your customers before they could enter your business. It was not your choice anymore. You needed to check this, and you could not let people into your business if they did not have this card. I thought that this went a little too far. And I got the vaccine. I encourage people to speak to their doctor about getting the vaccine in my videos and in person. But what you do is your business, not mine, was my thought about it. And I was not going to be looking at customers' record cards and going, I'm sorry, you have to go to the Genius Bar because you don't have a vaccine record card. I just wasn't doing that at this business. I was just not going anywhere near limiting who can enter our business based on what they've injected into their body. That just wasn't something that we were getting into here. And one of the criticisms I got in this video was, Louis, this doesn't apply to you. Did you even read the article? It applies to gyms, restaurants, and bars, you idiot. And one of the things that I learned from when I took my motorcycle instruction courses, when I was learning how to ride a motorcycle before getting a license, was first thing that they say, don't look just straight down, look in front of you. Look 2 or 3 or 4 cars ahead of you, because there's going to be somebody that comes down the road at 50 miles an hour, makes a left at an intersection when they're 40 feet away from you, and kills you. You can't be looking here. You need to be looking over there so that you can see what's coming down the pipeline. And that's what I was doing when I made this video. I told everybody at the store that I knew this was going to affect us in a few months, and it did, because there was a new mandate placed in today, and I would like to discuss this mandate. I would like to discuss why I think it is a bad idea. I would like to discuss why I am not going to be taking part in it, and why I am happy and proud to say this publicly, in spite of the fact that I encouraged people to get vaccinated and that I have been vaccinated myself. So it says here, New York City to impose vaccine mandate on businesses as cases rise. All city employers subject to vaccine mandate from December 27th, which is news to me, and New Yorkers have to be fully vaccinated for dining in gyms, which I believe was already the case as of several months ago. So it says here, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said the city will become the nation's first to impose a vaccine mandate on private sector workers starting on December 27th, characterizing it as a preemptive strike to head off a potential upsurge in COVID-19 cases. His office said the mandate, which will take effect just days before de Blasio leaves due to term limits, will cover roughly 184,000 businesses. One of those includes mine. It's unclear whether incoming Mayor Eric Adams will maintain the private sector mandate. De Blasio on Monday said that he spoke with the mayor-elect while he was working on it, but Adams spoke spokesperson Evan Thies said he will, quote, evaluate this mandate and other COVID strategies when he is in office, which is a complete politician non-answer to a question. Good job there. De Blasio said the steps are needed to prevent the virus from gaining ground, saying the city can't afford to see the types of lockdowns that are emerging in countries like Germany. I do agree that we cannot afford another lockdown. We cannot let these restrictions come back. We cannot have shutdowns here in New York City, he said during a press conference. The article goes on to discuss the legal issues and challenges that he may face, especially since President Biden is facing considerable pushback against his own COVID mandates. If the president's having issues with it, how are you going to be able to do it? The article goes on to discuss all of this. So I have not issued a vaccine mandate in my business. I was more comfortable doing a mask mandate in the beginning that I got rid of in June of this year once we were over 90% vaccinated at the store. Because, again, wearing a mask on your face, this is not something where it has any chance of serious adverse effects where I'm, injecting something into you. A vaccine does. So this was not something that I mandated in my store. What made it easy for me to get a high vaccination rate was that I explained to my staff why I got it. I suggested that they speak to their doctor about getting it. I told them you get full paid sick days, obviously, if you have any adverse effects from it, and you do you. When you treat people as free people rather than saying you get this or else, it's actually a lot easier to get compliance. And this is something that I've learned over the years as a leader. Admittedly, in the beginning, I kind of had this idea that I just tell you what to do and you do it. And at the end of the day, that doesn't actually encourage people to do what you ask them to do. You need to understand their concerns. You need to understand where they're coming from. And they should also understand where you're coming from. Most of the time as a business owner, I'm not telling somebody you do this or else. I'm explaining my situation. I'm explaining where we are, I'm explaining what I did, and then I'm making a suggestion. And at the end of the day, that actually resulted in me having a vaccination rate of my store of literally everybody besides one employee, who admittedly just the guy who just kind of sits in the corner and doesn't talk to people anyway. Everybody besides one person at my store has been vaccinated up to this point, and of the people who got vaccinated at my store, all of them besides one were fine after the vaccine. One person had an adverse effect. Now, this individual was not particularly excited to get the vaccine. They had already been exposed to COVID because their significant other had COVID early last year. He was also stuck in a 100 square foot unventilated bedroom with his brother, who was COVID positive for a fair amount of time in a small Bronx apartment, which again, they're not known for their super HEPA-filtered ventilation. And he did not have any effects. He had already been exposed to it. There was somebody in his life that has considerably more authority over him than any boss or mayor who had suggested that he strongly suggested he get the vaccine, whose name will not be mentioned here because she will kill me. But yeah, she wanted him to get vaccinated. So before he got vaccinated, he went to his doctor. He got a full checkup. He is 31 years old. He plays soccer every day. He beats me in races, even though I outlift him. He is in good health. And he was given a clean bill of health. He gets the vaccine. First dose, he's fine. Second dose, horrible case of myocarditis. Mild heart attack, in the hospital for a week. And during that hospital stay, I think it was like a $30,000 or $40,000 bill that he got. Insurance covered most of it, but he still had to pay over $2,000 out of pocket. The cardiologist actually bills you separately from the hospital. Our medical system is a giant scam, but I digress. He had to spend over $2,000 out of pocket, and his doctor also told him, don't do any sort of serious, strenuous exercise over the next 5 or 6 months. It could be detrimental to you. Now, I never mandated that he get this vaccine. I told everybody, I got it. I suggest you talk to your doctor about getting it, but I am not going to force you to. That is not my business. Here's why I got it. Here's why I think others should get it. But again, you do you. And just about everybody got it. Now, the problem here is that, how do I put this? If I had mandated that he get that vaccine, am I then liable as an employer for the fact that he went to the hospital? Would I be liable to pay that bill? Would I be morally or ethically responsible for the fact that for the next 6 months, he is not able to engage in sports or do the things that he enjoys doing because he had this horrible case? Many people will say that these adverse effects are adverse effects that you can get even worse from COVID, and that is 100% true. I know people that have had organs fail as a result of getting COVID. It is a thing. However, if you have already been exposed to COVID, not once, but twice, and you have natural immunity at that point, and you know how your body responds to when you get COVID, and I tell you, listen, that's not good enough, you need to get this shot, and that shot winds up costing you over $2,000 and 6 months of not being able to play sports and puts you in the hospital, am I then legally, financially, or even just aside from that, am I ethically and morally accountable and responsible to you as an employer, as a business owner, as a friend for making you do that when you have this effect? Because Pfizer ain't. Continuing to look down the pipeline, this is how this is going to go. So originally this only had to deal with bars, restaurants, and gyms. Now it deals with every private employer. Now, 3 or 6 or 9 months down the pipeline, when they say, by the way, you're not considered fully vaccinated until you get a booster or until you get a booster plus the Omicron shot, I'm going to have a conversation with my employee that goes something like this. Hey man, how's it going? How's the drive recovery? Oh, it's going great. I just recovered one of those Granadas. They're a royal pain in the ass. Yeah, man, I know. Seagate sucks, but hey, anything's better than a Rosewood drive, right? Yeah, anything's better than a Rosewood. Well, there's one thing that's probably not better than a Rosewood. What's that? Yeah, you know how that second vaccine shot put you in the hospital and gave you a heart attack? Yeah? Yeah, I'm going to need you to get a third one. The city is mandating it. You're not actually going to do it, are you? Well, yeah, I'm kind of legally obligated to, so I need you to get the third shot. Oh, yeah, you can gargle my balls. That's how that conversation's going to go. That employee is then going to tell me to gargle his balls, and when he says that, that's not going to be sexual harassment. That's just going to be the natural response to when somebody demands that you get a medical procedure in order to keep your job. That's how that conversation's going to go, because when he got his second shot, he had a fucking mild heart attack as a result of it. And this is one of those things where I am not going to have that conversation with him, nor am I going to be mandating that people get it. Because the thing is, when I mandate that someone injects something into themselves, again, this is just my personal ethics, yours may differ, I believe that to some extent I am responsible or accountable for what happens as a result of them doing that. I am not doing that. I am not having that conversation with him. Further, the other reason I'm against these mandates, and something that I think is actually important, is because they create culture wars that are detrimental to actually getting people vaccinated and caring about public health. So let's just take something that Bill de Blasio said that I believe is radicalizing more anti-vaxxers than any anti-vax website ever could.
The voluntary phase is over.
When he says the voluntary phase is over on public television, that is creating a culture war. You are giving every single conspiracy theorist and anti-vaxxer a wet dream. One of the things that really pisses me off, the thing I hate reading in my comments more than anything else, is when somebody says, Lewis, if you were the politician suggesting that we get vaccinated, I would do it. The reason I don't is because I don't trust them. That makes me sick to my stomach. The idea that I have authority over people where they would actually get a vaccine if I was the one making the argument for it, not the politicians, because of the way that I make the argument for it. Those comments make me sick. They really do, because I was actually coming at this from a more progressive perspective. The progressive perspective appears to be, let's figure out the root cause of something rather than dealing with the consequence afterwards with force. So for instance, if we're talking about crime, try to figure out what it is that's causing people to commit crime rather than saying we're going to change the prison sentence from 5 years to 15 years, or we're going to build a bigger prison, or we're going to get more cops, more security cameras, more cops, more prisons. Let's deal with it at the beginning. So rather than deal with vaccine hesitancy by creating a mandate where you are no longer allowed to have a job, I would rather deal with it at, okay, what are the reasons that you're not getting? Can you explain to me your concerns? Can you explain to me what's causing you to be distrustful? If distrust is the reason you're not getting it, put it out on the table. Explain to me what your hesitancy is so that I can work with it. And it's probably not going to be a perfect solution. What I say is probably not going to pacify you 100%, but let's have an honest-to-God conversation. I think that would result in a higher vaccination rate than some fuckface going on TV and saying the voluntary phase is over. Because again, when you say the voluntary phase is over, there were many times where people were pointing out that things that Trump were saying were actually being used in the Middle East to radicalize terrorists. I do believe that that same analogy can be used here, where when you have him go on television and say the voluntary phase is over, that is going to radicalize people into a culture war where people that otherwise would have gotten a vaccine are saying, I'm not getting a vaccine just because of that cunt, fuck him. And when you deal, again, you may think it's stupid, but a lot of it, this is a lot of how this works. It's a lot of lizard brain thinking. You try to make me do it, I'm going to do the opposite just because. Even people that are adults, this is how a lot of people think. And engaging with them in a different way is actually not only the right thing to do, in my opinion, in a free society, but also a method that would actually lead to a higher vaccination rate. I was not against that vaccine mandate because I am anti-vaccine, because I'm never going to get a vaccine, because I think the COVID vaccine is going to cause me to mutate or die or whatever, which I pointed out jokingly in this video that I did over here. I am against it because it's actually going to have the opposite effect. This is going to create more anti-vaxxers than what would have ever existed otherwise. And it is highly frustrating to see that in a city that tends to follow progressive politics, hook, line, and sinker, that in this one particular area, the idea of addressing the root cause of why people are not choosing to get vaccinated rather than have a mandate after the fact with force is just absolutely mind-numbing to me. But this is not something that I'm going to be taking part in. I am not going to be telling people at work that if you don't get the vaccine, you are fired. This is not something that we're taking part in. This is not something that we are doing. If this evolves to the point where they say that you are not considered fully vaccinated unless you get a booster, which again, give it 6 months. I am not going to be walking up to my employee that got my horrible case of myocarditis and then a mild heart attack from this vaccine and saying, you are no longer able to do data recovery here unless you get a booster. That's not a conversation that I'm having with my staff members. That's not your business. If you wish to come into my business and fine us as a result of that, you're more than welcome to do so. But that's not something that we're doing here. That's not something that I have any intention of going forward with. And if the city attempts to enforce that, that will be the point at which I tell people we're not running a business here anymore. I'm not doing that. Like that is my line in the sand. Now, there is one good thing that I think may happen as a result of this. I've always said that one of the reasons that I don't have my business leave New York City is that I believe that I have the best staff in this industry. I believe that my staff is way better than what I have earned or what I deserve. They are the best in the business, by far. You read the reviews online, they are top-notch, and the reason they are top-notch is because we have an amazing team. I am very hard on the people here. I have very high standards, and they routinely meet or exceed those standards, and I am very happy about the work that they do. And some of them are not just able to get up and leave. It's just not something that is easy for them to do in the way that I would be able to. They have family members. They have certain family members that have certain issues. They're not just able to just immediately leave. That being said, if I am forced to have a conversation with the store manager where it's, yo, we're going to get fined out of business, or you got to get a booster when the second shot gave you a heart attack, that's a point at which I imagine he's going to, Lewis has been talking a lot about Florida and New Hampshire recently. Maybe I should check that out a little bit. It's one of those things where it's like, I'm not asking you to do it. The mayor is. I didn't make this law. They did. Hey, check it out. Look, not only are houses and apartments cheaper over there, not only can you go to the beach all year round over there, but you don't have to get another shot when the second shot gave you a heart attack. It's one of those things where I genuinely believe that it might just be the kick in the ass necessary to actually get people here to consider alternatives to being in New York City as a business, where it's not just Lewis just has this fevered dream about leaving to another state because it's more affordable, but rather, yo, I ain't getting a third shot. Fuck that. And I do wonder if that's going to be where this winds up leading. But this is not something that I'm enforcing, and the reason I'm saying this up front is because I know that there are a lot of other businesses that think the exact same thing that are not saying anything. They are afraid of fines. They are afraid of social ostracism. They are afraid of being mischaracterized, as I often am in my comment section when people say, you are an anti-vaccine person because, or what they'll do is they'll point to the worst comment in my comment section and magically imply that that's my opinion, as if they would ever apply this standard to, I don't know, CBS or ABC News' YouTube channel and they report a crime story in the city. Those comment sections are disgusting, but that's a story in and of itself. There are many businesses that are not going to say this out loud that are thinking the exact same thing that I am. And I know this for a fact because of all the restaurants I've been to in New York City over the past 4 months. Only one of them has actually read my vaccination card. So usually it goes something like this, like, oh, do you have your vaccine card? And I'll go, yeah, I do. It's, I do. It's right. Oh, yeah, okay, you're good. Before I even get this thing out of my fucking wallet, the businesses will tell me, yeah, don't worry about it, you're good. They're not even reading it. One restaurant in the entire fucking time has actually read it. So I know that there are other people out there that are just not for this. They're just afraid against speaking against the prevailing winds of the time. They are afraid of screaming banshees coming after them saying that they are anti-vaccination, they want people to die, and all this other stuff that is just not true. I don't want people to die. I want the best for the health of my staff, and I always have. If somebody is here and I see them with a fucking McDonald's bag, I will tell them, here's my credit card. As long as you buy something that is healthy, lunch is on me. I have a gym in my store, and people are encouraged to use it while they're punched in on the clock. I have a policy at my business of unlimited sick days for anybody who is a full-time employee who has passed probation. I am a business owner that I believe cares about the health of his staff. I just don't think that this is the right way to go about doing things, and I am okay with saying that publicly. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video, and Eric Adams, again, you have the ability to undo a lot of what Bill de Blasio has done that has been negative for the city. Consider giving a stronger answer next time you're asked one of these questions. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.